2XKO recently had its alpha lab close, and one of my viewers was gracious enough to let me have an alpha key that they got as part of being randomly selected to participate, and I played it for a while, tested out all of the characters, tried to understand some basic combos and what the game felt like, got into a bunch of matches against real people, and I have some thoughts on the game as a whole. Because while I see the potential of an amazing game here, there's still some things under the surface that could make the game less than desirable for others. Now before I say anything, I'll preface this entire video by saying that yes, I do understand that the game is an alpha, meaning the game can change drastically before release, and I'll also preface this by saying that obviously everything I say here is my opinion and should solely be taken as that, an opinion. Now let's get into the reasons why 2XKO could be peak, or why it could flop harder than me into hard cement. For the briefest of introductions to anyone who hasn't been paying attention to all of the videos made about the game yet, 2XKO is Riot's newest attempt at making a game that isn't League of Legends but is still set in the League of Legends universe in a 2v2 fighting game that has a bunch of very recognizable characters from the MOBA. They also have this interesting mechanic where you can choose an augment before going into the fight to give you different buffs, but pretty much everyone just took the recommended one, which will make you do super moves after certain combos if you have enough meter. The roster right now is obviously very small, with only 6 characters in Echo, Yasuo, Braum, Ahri, Alawi, and Darius, but don't worry, I'll be getting into the roster later, so make sure you stick around until the end of the video to hear my thoughts on what could make this roster a banger. There's plenty of assist moves, there's plenty of combos, and a lot of style, so let's start with the reasons this game could be absolutely peak. Reason number 1 is the ease of access to newer players, because unlike more traditional fighting games that will have you use things like quarter circles and directional inputs, 2XKO has decided to have its combos be based around the moves that get thrown out and say nah to directional inputs. This means that you can just hit a single button over and over and have the character perform a combo for you, and you can mix and match what moves you throw in order to flash your moves and extend your combos to increase damage. And this ease of use is honestly something that I feel like will make the game a lot better than other fighting games, because as a recent fighting game noob myself, one of the hardest parts of learning fighting games has to be the very steep barrier to entry. Like, I've been playing Guilty Gear Strive for almost 20 hours, and I still constantly mess up my combos on the one character I play there, so having a system like this where newer players can understand it almost immediately, and it has enough depth where more veteran players will be able to pull off massive combo strings that'll look cool at EVO, is such a nice thing in my opinion. Another big positive is the 2v2 nature of the game, because it can be so good and so punishing at the same time, so you need to understand how to use it properly, which admittedly, I'm not the best at, but it can definitely make or break a game if you use it right or get happy birthdayed, which is when your off-screen character takes damage when they come in for an assist. And I'm sure someone will eventually come around and make a tier list about what the best combo is for your chosen characters, but the fun of having a 2v2 game is figuring out which characters you enjoy playing, because regardless of how well they function together, you still need to know how to play both of them. So picking characters that you enjoy rather than what's the most meta combo is a perfectly valid way of playing the game and will definitely be a big pull for newer players. And as much as some people think it might not matter, the art style and the way that the characters feel just adds to an already incredible experience. Each character feels flashy and like their hits matter, which leads to a very satisfying gameplay experience, because even when you're playing someone big like Braum, you're not just locked into playing this traditionally slow and heavy character archetype that doesn't always feel exciting or looked exciting in my opinion. Not only that, but each character has a lot of depth to their kit and how to use it, and due to the simple control scheme I mentioned earlier, you can end up with some pretty amazing combos while still being relatively new to the game, which just makes the experience of learning the game that much better. And the art style for this game is so good, because League of Legends has definitely not kept up when it comes to models, especially when you compare some characters to their League of Legends counterpart. It's just very And this art style definitely helps to have the game stand out compared to other fighting games, and I cannot wait to see the new takes on some of the other champions that they're planning to bring into the game. However, we need to start talking about the cons. Now, because the game is in alpha, I won't mainly be talking about features that it either doesn't have yet or that I think it needs, because they'll more than likely be in the game on release day. So let's instead pivot to what we can see from the alpha that could be holding 2XKO back from being an amazing game. Going back to the simple control scheme, there is a flip side to it that makes it feel incredibly annoying when you're on the receiving end. Since just about anyone could potentially hit one or two buttons over and over again and have a decent combo do itself, it becomes a little bit hard to know whether or not you're getting destroyed by someone actually good at the game, or because they happen to get a lucky hit in and it allows them to get a combo off for it. And some of the attack timings can feel super weird, like this one Ari move where I swear it feels like I should easily be able to block the follow-up, but I just can't, and the models don't really feel like they are reacting in a way to tell me that I can't block this. And I know there's the age-old joke about fighting games actually being single-player games, and whether it's intentional or not, there are one-shot combos in the game. I do not care how hard one-shot combos are to pull off in other games. In 2XKO, due to its very simple input nature, it allows for very easy one-shot combos in comparison to other fighting games. Sure, you need to basically be at max resource, but I will stand by my stance that you should never just lose the game because you got hit once. It is not fun game design to be on the receiving end of an ass whooping where it basically boils down to, damn, I guess I shouldn't have gotten hit that one time. And because of the simple nature of the input, the game really feels like you almost get cheated out of getting to play it because the other person got the first hit in, so they are guaranteed to combo you while you just have to sit there and take the damage. And going back to what I was saying earlier, some of the moves aren't really well telegraphed to tell what they are. Some moves are lows that don't look like lows, some moves aren't overheads when they look like overheads, and some moves are overheads that don't look like overheads. And again, due to the floaty nature of the game in terms of its style, it can feel very awkward trying to find when it's your turn because unlike other fighting games, there can often be a non-snappy response to what feels like should be a snappy response. Another problem I see the game having is these little augments that you get to pick after picking your characters. Now, I don't know if it was just the fact that this was a closed alpha and people wanted to get into matches ASAP, or if people just didn't want to take the time to theorycraft what the best one could be, but the fact that everyone took the augment that just makes doing supers easier is a bit indicative of where the game might stand for a while. Throughout the time I played on alpha, I don't think I saw a single person take an augment besides the base one, and the problem here is that it ends up feeling like a wasted feature where you just take the one that makes the game easier to get off supers easier and the others don't get played around with at all. Sure, again, that could just be due to the fact that it's alpha and people want to test out champions more than think about other parts of the game, but I think it's worth mentioning to help people at Riot maybe come up with a different system or rethink having a specific augment in the game. However, we do need to start talking about the most important thing, the one thing that will determine if any fighting game is a success or if it jumps right into the dumpster. The roster. Now, the roster for the game so far is pretty good. I mean, we got a pixie fighter, we have heavy hitters with iframes, we got rushdowns, we got the one guy that uses a sword, but we're missing something. Where's my grappler? Where's my zoner? Where's my guy that uses a gun? And it makes you kind of wonder how this guy is even in the game because wouldn't a gun just kill people automatically? And that's before you remember that there's games where people get their spine shattered and walk it off, so the gun actually isn't that weird. Now, I'm of the belief that the release roster of this game will probably focus more on archetypes than it will with going deep into the league roster and making sure there's a good spread of champs from each region of Runeterra, because just like in actual league, some regions have a lot more champions than others. I'll also preface this by saying that due to the league's extensive roster, you're going to find characters from everywhere in the game that could translate well, but I'm going to be including characters that I think could make use of existing fighting game archetypes really well. Let's start with Grappler, which is a very iconic role to fill out a roster, and I honestly can't see this going to anyone besides Set. Not only was being a grappler part of his original design, but he still maintains some of that design in League of Legends, and not many other champions really have moves that would translate perfectly to a fighting game in my opinion. When it comes to mix-up characters, I think no one would be better than LeBlanc and Zed. Imagine the combos in mind games these guys could pull off with their respective teleports and clones that they could bring to the table, and the ability to really make people think and be on their toes when fighting them while dealing with a barrage of potential abilities hitting them. That was a lot of words that maybe didn't make sense, but I think you get the idea. For zoners, I have a couple of picks here that I think could be good, but this is the one where I may be reaching for the stars here. A classic pick in League for zoning would be someone like Orianna, using her ball to control the pace of the fight and maybe function similarly to someone like Rosalina and Luma, where attacks can come out from both her and the ball when they're separated. I can honestly see Ezreal working really well here, and just like Axel from Guilty Gear, he can also fulfill being the really annoying blonde zoner with long-range attacks that have plenty of mix-up within them as well. For rushdowns, we have plenty of those in people like Aurelia, Jax, Riven, Gwen, Nocturne, and all of the other divers that exist, but I personally prefer Gwen and Jax being in there because Gwen is already a great design for fighting games. I mean, the giant scissors are amazing, and Jax can perform much more like a combination between a rushdown and a mix-up and let him shine with the title of being a Grandmaster at Arms. For big bodies to make our players that want to hit hard feel good, Malphite and Sion are the most obvious choices in my opinion, and I don't think I even need to explain this one. Jhin. Make the sole person with a gun in the game into Jhin. He might be one of the more complicated characters, but I can't think of anyone better to make it into the one guy that has a gun. I mean, truly, the possibilities are endless here, and I'm sure that Riot is going to take the time to really try to understand what characters they want to put into this game. But I do want to stress the importance of a good roster, because having a good roster with unique designs and a wide array of character archetypes can really make a fighting game that much better. I'm not saying my roster suggestions should be in the game, except for Jhin, and I will fight for him to be in this game forever, but I want to give people an idea of what could be in this game and how good some characters could fit into this game and how bad it would be if Riot drops the ball here. Like, I know there's some people out there that like Lissandra, but she really wouldn't translate that well to a fighting game in my opinion. Just the same, there's a lot of people that like Yone, but I feel like it would be too similar to Yasuo and wouldn't fit well into the base roster. Either way, I'm incredibly excited to see how Riot handles 2xKO moving forward, and I am so ready to hear about all the news regarding this game as it comes out.